just got home after a day of mom and daughter out and about.
Shopping, grocerying.
World Market to buy incense, because every good home has to have incense. Flashback to the 60s.
Yeah, we like incense. Not everybody does. I know a lot of people that are like claim to be allergic to it, or they hate the smell or whatever, but
Yeah, they get headaches
I
from
like
breathing it.
I've always liked it, so.
They have a new World Market out here in Katy, Texas, and a new Whole Foods, and I've been waiting for years for them to come out here. So Colleen took me today for the very first time.
Yeah, what'd you think? What'd you think of the Whole Foods compared to other Whole Foods? We really didn't spend that much time there.
I liked it because it's more manageable for me. It's a smaller Whole Foods.
Right.
So if I'm on the electric cart, easier to maneuver the store, but if I'm in my wheelchair, it's less easy. So from what I could see, I liked it. When I'm able to take myself there, I could probably easily spend 3 hours in Whole Foods just familiarizing myself with where everything is and what I like.
Well, one thing we haven't talked about, I don't know if we need to, but that you have a physical limitations, that you use a wheelchair.
Right.
And you use predominantly throughout your day. You don't walk anymore.
No.
You can get up and
I can
shuffle.
Stand. I can shuffle a couple of feet only.
Of feet, like from the chair to the bed, chair to the toilet, chair to the car, that sort of thing. But there's no real walking anymore.
Right.
So when we go out, we need to bring the chair, and then if there's a motorized cart, we usually grab those or bring the wheelchair in and do that. So this afternoon was really exhausting because
we're both exhausted.
Well, we started the day late, so she was already up, and she recently broke her back in January.
Not by doing anything extraordinary either. My water was running in my bathroom, and I went in the bathroom and I heard it coming from the toilet. I saw that the toilet tank top had fallen into the tank. So I rolled up in my wheelchair and put the brakes on, and I stood up and I reached forward and lifted the tank out of the water, and when I did that, it was like an electric lightning bolt to the small of my back. And everybody said to me, "Did you drop the toilet tank?" I said, "No, I very carefully put it down on the toilet, and then I sat very carefully back down in my wheelchair." And the next 9 days I spent in bed, calling my doctor, asking him for muscle relaxers about day 4. About day 7, Colleen said to me, "Mom, when are you going to the hospital?" And I said, "In fact, I'm planning on going tomorrow." So by day 9, I was in the emergency room where they did a MRI, and they said, well, you have a broken back. So then I was put in the hospital, and then started months and months and months of recovery. I think I came home Valentine's Day.
You came on Valentine's Day, but by that weekend,
17th, I was back in the hospital, and they put me in rehab.
Because you weren't ready to come home by yourself.
Right.
Because you were by yourself at the time.
It was bad. And then I got discharged again in May.
No, March, end of March.
And I did come home by myself at that time. And I did okay.
Yeah, you were, but the improvement from beginning it was January 21st to March 26th when you got out, that 2 months, vast improvement. So really, you did really well on that.
Right.
But at any rate, so physical issues when we go out, it's not just two people jumping in and out of the car, spry, racing into the stores like able-bodied people.
It's my poor daughter having to haul my wheelchair out of the trunk.
Well, I have my own issues physically as well, so I was, exhausted. I get tired easily with, and I don't know, this is a weird condition to have,
Oh, this is interesting, really.
The story, should I tell
Yes,
the story?
absolutely, because most people don't know about these types of things.
Well, in late 2009, I'll just give a brief synopsis. Late 2009, I had a regular Friday night after work. I remember the meal exactly. We had veggie burgers and fries, and I wasn't even a vegetarian then. I am now, but we ate veggie burgers often. Wayne had been a vegetarian for a couple of years at this point, so we cooked vegetarian at home for dinner all the time. And I just, bought meat to have for the kids and myself if I wanted it. But I wasn't going to cook 2 meals, so every meal, dinner meal, we cooked vegetarian. So at any rate, veggie burger, fries, no problem. I started feeling like a little pain in my upper right abdominal area, like that night. And I was like, oh, God, I feel
like here?
sick up here.
Ah. Mm.
And like under the, like around by where the rib cage would start on the right-hand side. So I was like, what the hell? I was like, oh no, what if I'm getting, appendicitis or something like that? So by Saturday, it hadn't gotten any better. And it was just, I just sort of laid around. I really didn't do a lot, but I was trying to keep it. I thought, okay, maybe I'm constipated. Not to be gross,
That's funny.
but sometimes that happens when you're over 40 and
Right.
that's what you think. Maybe I just need to go poop. That's what people think. So, but I took care of my business and nothing really changed. And by Sunday morning, it really hurt and to roll over in bed was painful. And I was like, what is going on? So
What did I do?
Long story short, we went to the emergency room that Sunday afternoon. They did the CAT scan. They took the blood. They did the whatever. They came back and immediately upon seeing me, they thought, okay, she's 42, overweight, obese, female. It's got to be her gallbladder. Upper right quadrant pain usually equals, gallstones or something. They're like, your gallbladder's unremarkable. And that's the one time you don't want to be remarkable is when you're having physical tests performed at the doctor. You want everything to be unremarkable at that point. So they're like, but we're going to refer you to a gastroenterologist and a hematologist because you have a fatty liver, your liver's enlarged, and your spleen is also enlarged, and you have some very large lymph nodes in your... I can't even remember. I'd have to get the reports, but of course I went right home and looked everything up, all the words, which were basically the lymph nodes in your abdominal area, like behind the aorta, near the, in the hole, that torso area.
Abdominal cavity.
I had swollen lymph nodes, both the liver and spleen were enlarged, gallbladder A-okay. Well, of course, the pain dissipated, within, the next day, I've never had that pain again. Even up until this point. Never had it again. I've had twinges of pain, but... So at any rate, this started a barrage of doctor visits to the gastroenterologist and the hematologist. The gastro guy, did a couple more scans, did a, patient history, had me come visit a couple times, at which point he was like, you know what, I don't really think you have anything going on here. He's like, you've got fatty liver because you're obese. I'm not a drinker. I've never been a big drinker. So basically his advice was lose weight, all of that. The hematologist, which in case people don't know, a hematologist is really like a blood cancer specialist. That's really what those people are. And Dr. Ramshesh is her name. Indian lady with I want to say from England because she has a British accent. So she started having me come in for scans every 3 months. This went on for about,
9 months to a year?
Probably about 9 months, at which point the following summer, in August of 2010, she was like, and I would do blood work, and the blood work would come back fine. Nothing was, my liver wasn't, and my enzymes were okay, but I still had the enlarged liver, the enlarged spleen, the enlarged lymph nodes. So she was basically like, you know what? To take a biopsy of these lymph nodes, they're really far in your body. That would be super invasive, and I don't want to, and we may not even get anything, at the size they are. They're not big enough to really sample, kind of a thing. So she said, let me just get a PET scan, which is a positron emission something. It's basically, and this test was really interesting. The PET scan, you go in.
Oh, the PET scan.
The PET scan. Now, this is something that a lot of people who have cancer have to get. Because what they do is they shoot you up with a radioactive sugar compound. And like my friend at work told me, cancer cells love to party it up with sugar molecules. So wherever the sugar goes, blah blah blah. That's what they're looking for, So and I'm like, well, you think there's something in there? She's like, let's just rule it out. That was her thought. So I went in and had the PET scan, and here's what makes you feel comfortable. You go into a room that is looks like some kind of hazmat thing from a biohazard movie of zombies. You're made to wait in this room, in a dark room. They had me sitting in this dark room. Then they come in to shoot you up with the radioactive stuff. And the technician is wearing like a hazmat suit with some kind of thick-ass gloves, and they don't even touch the shit with their glove hand. They have a piece of metal, like a fork thingy, that hooks to the thing that they're going to put directly into your body, but they can't touch it, with their glove even, because it's highly radioactive. But they're going to go ahead and mainline that right into my body. No problem. Then they make you sit in the dark. I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't read. I couldn't do anything. I had to lay in a recliner for 30 minutes to let the stuff fly around in my body. And because your brain is not, they don't want your brain thinking, because your brain is always thinking. But if you stimulate it further with TV and books, your brain's going to be like, it's going to light up really. The PET scan is going to be what they call hot.
So the purpose of the PET scan is to show where your body is lit up.
Yes.
Activity.
So what they're looking for is the molecules of the radioactive stuff zoom to the areas that are inflamed and hot and lit up. Something's going on here is what they say. Well, after the test, which basically after they radioactive you get shot into the tube like you do with a regular CAT scan. They zoom you in and out and you're done. Then they're like, do you have to use the bathroom? And they make you use a special toilet because your pee and everything else that comes out is radioactive. They tell you not to have sex, not to do this, not to do that after the radioactive test. And even if you want, don't sleep next to your partner. I think I could have sworn that was in the literature. Wayne's like, yeah, I'm not scared. So, but my friend who has had it done. So they never told her that, and they never made her use a separate toilet like she was an outcast either. So I don't know if they're just super careful down at St. Luke's, but apparently that's what...
or super stupid somewhere else.
You're right. So, needless to say, I went back to work. I was waiting. I didn't go back to work that day, but the next day went to work, and I got a call directly from the doctor, which is not good when the doctor calls you themselves. Right about 9:30 in the morning to tell me that my PET scan was super hot, and now she's concerned I might have lymphoma, and that she needs me to have a lymph node biopsy ASAP, sooner rather than later, because she wants to get going on whatever treatment we need to do, friggin' fast. Because apparently that PET scan was like a Christmas tree. So I was like, holy shit, because I've been experiencing fatigue, joint pain, night sweats, not night sweats, but sweating for no reason. But I had also found out during this time frame of going to all these doctors from 2009 to this point, September of 2010, that I was diabetic. In March of 2010, I had blood work done, and my fasting blood sugar was 135, which is over, you're supposed to be less than 112 on the fasting blood sugar. If you have a number above 125, 2 times in a row within a 2-week period, then you're diabetic and they start treating you as such. So I had to go back in 2 weeks that March, and boom, yes, another 135. So, hello, you're diabetic now. Here's your medication. So I had to start doing that. So I was starting to deal with all these things, realizing I'm fucked up. I've got, my health is shit. I'm and I thought, well, I'm exhausted because I'm fat and I'm over 40 and I'm stressed at work and I don't sleep enough, and that's why I feel all these things. But the minute she said lymphoma, I was like, oh my God, that's what it is. I've got lymphoma, And I said, but I don't understand. All my tests, my blood test doesn't indicate any kind of craziness. And she said, no, but you could have something called follicular lymphoma, which is a super slow growing lymphoma, really slow growing cancer. So when I heard the word follicular, because I happen to have known someone, a friend of mine, that actually had that very same type of lymphoma a couple years prior, and she talked to me, and, I knew already that it was a very mild type of treatment that she was doing, and that she was fine. So I felt instantly kind of relieved, like, okay, if you're going to get lymphoma, that's probably the one you want to get, kind of a thing. So anyhow, I went and had a biopsy of my lymph node, which is a whole other hilarious story. But
You did have the biopsy. So
I
I
had a
didn't
lymph
remember
node
the
biopsy, yes. And
that's the one that
right,
they did in the
stick the giant
arm,
needle
not
yeah.
in the abdomen.
Right.
Okay.
But your lymphatic system is all connected, so I guess if they take a lymph node from your armpit, it's going to tell the story of what's going on with all your lymph nodes, apparently. Because your lymphatic system is all connected. That's why once your shit goes to the lymph nodes, it's bad. Like when you get a spread of a metastasis of cancer, and it's in your lymphatic system, that's not good, because it's like a highway to your entire body, right? So it's like, it can cruise all over you, when cancer's in the lymph system. So, anywho, long story long, she called me, finally, it was 2 days of nervous waiting and, wanting her to call really bad and then not wanting her to call at all, because I didn't really want to hear it, and I didn't want to face that next step, which would be telling my children, telling my family, trying to figure out, what to do, how bad is it going to be? Are they going to find something else? Is it going to be another kind of lymphoma and not the kind she thinks? Is it going to be worse? Anyhow, she called me, and that weekend, my family and I were going to my brother's house, and my other brother was driving in, and we were all having like a slumber party and just a fun, couple of days hanging out, and I was really looking forward to it, and because I hadn't heard anything. It's 4 o'clock on a Friday, I hadn't heard a word, and I thought, well, I'm not going to hear anything until next week, so I am just going to put this aside and go have a good time with my brothers and my husband and my kids, and just have a good time. And we hadn't told our kids, at all, because I didn't want to say anything to them until I knew something concrete, when I'm worrying about stuff. And so, 4:05, ring, ring, it's the doctor's office, and I almost threw up right at my desk, thinking, oh God, here it is. Here it is. So I, picked up my cell phone, I just started pacing, because I thought initially I would go into the bathroom and take the call in there, but instead I couldn't even walk that far. I just stood up and started pacing back and forth in front of my cubicle at work. I'm sure the other coworkers thought I was a weird, what the hell's wrong with her? And she said, hello, Miss Connor, this is Dr. Ramchesh, and I wanted to call you because I knew you were waiting for me to give you results, but I just wanted to tell you it's negative for lymphoma, no cancer, no lymphoma. I was like, oh my God. Holy crap. That's what a relief. I thought.
What good news.
Yeah, great. I'm like, you're sure? You're absolutely sure. She's like, I'm sure. She said, but you do test positive for something called sarcoidosis. Do you know what that is? And I'm like, I do know what that is, actually, because the comedian Bernie Mac, an actor Bernie Mac, who actually passed away a few years ago from lung pneumonia complications, they estimated, to his sarcoidosis, which primarily affects people's lungs a lot of the time. That's like a predominant way that it... Anyhow, it is an autoimmune disorder where your body creates these, I think they call them granulomas, like little clusters of crap cells that hook to your lungs. It can affect you anywhere.
Almost like fibrosis?
I don't know if it's fibrosis. They're called granulomas, so little clumps of cells, and they hook to the lungs, which I think can get the lungs, give you breathing problems or something, but I don't have any of that. But it can affect your heart, your nerves, your brain, your memory. Primarily it affects the lungs of most people, and your joints, and so you can have fatigue and joint pain. Which I did. But also, the other thing it does, fatigue, joint pain, also enlarged liver and spleen can be one of the
attributed to sarcoidosis.
yeah, and enlarged lymph nodes. So I had all that. Well, that was great news. So I knew what that was. She referred me to a pulmonary doctor, Dr. Doss, who you met with me and gone to see. Where I then started a new battery of testing, doing my lung performance, which still wasn't good because I'm a fat woman. So, my breathing was compromised because I was fat, So I really need to make an appointment with him to just redo all my tests to see how I'm doing now, because he said I didn't have to come back for a year, so it's been a year already. But anyhow, so that was great news, and I didn't have to go back and see her unless something else happened or I had some other kind of issue come up, related to all of this. But so far, so good. So, but the sarcoidosis is one of those things, as I've tried to research it, there's not a lot of information out there. There's a few websites.
Kind of a mystery disease, isn't it?
It is, and they don't know how people get it. It's predominant, it's very high, more predominant in African American people and people from Northern European, like Ireland, England descent. Okay, so my lineage is in that area. Also people who work in certain industrial areas, which I haven't, so I'm not in that environmental cause group, because we already talked about that and I'm not. So, but, so anyhow, that was that. So I just, it can come and go. So
and it can disappear.
So what I started looking at for myself.
There's no treatment for it, is there, other than
not
you just
really. If you
rest?
Kind of like, it's not similar to lupus. I don't mean to lump it in the same group as lupus, but one of the things they treat you with in lupus is steroids. If you develop a lot more issues with the sarcoidosis, they'll put you on steroid medication, which you want to avoid pretty much because of all the side effects of steroid use. I don't want to deal with that. So I started looking at what are things that I could do to improve myself, immune-wise, meaning autoimmune system-wise. My doctor, Ramshesh, started talking to me about my diet and asking me, how much meat did I eat? What kind of diet? And I'm like, well, obviously I'm obese. I have a weight problem. I eat pretty much whatever I want. I mean, I try not to eat too much crap, but, as far as fast food, but I did in the past eat a ton of fast food. So I said, well, why? And Wayne and I have been I've been thinking about vegetarianism for a while, since Wayne had been a vegetarian for 2 years, and he'd been floating the idea of vegetarianism for a while before that. Like I said, we'd already started cooking vegetarian at home, so I was already eating vegetarian meals for dinner. It was just I would eat meat at lunch or out, I jokingly said I eat my meat out on the street like crack, like a crackhead, I get to eat a hamburger, whatever. So she said, well, I'd like you to not eat red meat or pork anymore. You can have a little chicken if you want, but I really prefer it if you just eat fish. If you like fish, or a little chicken, if at all possible. And I'm like, well, I'm really not a fan of fish. I don't really like fish that much. I was never a fish eater. I like shrimp, a little shellfish now and again. But overall, I didn't like the taste of fish. I wasn't a fish eater. And chicken is dull as dirt. So at that moment, that was about, that was probably September, October of 2010. And at that moment, I decided, right around Thanksgiving time, I decided that, or right before Thanksgiving, so this was October, I want to say, I decided, come January 1st, I'm going to try to go vegetarian and not eat meat anymore. 2011, January 1st, 2011. So I made up my mind in my head before I said anything to anybody about it, and I told Wayne, this is what I'm going to do. He was astounded, and told me later he didn't think I'd last a week, let alone the 3 years that I've been, 3.5 years I've been.
And how long has Wayne been a vegetarian now?
He went vegetarian in the summer of 2007, so it's been 6 years this year. Yeah. I think he just had his 6th anniversary. So for him, it was more an ethical choice about animals and whatnot. And I think right now he's dabbling with the idea of going vegan to really.
What does that mean, vegetarian versus vegan?
Vegans do not eat any animal products at all. They won't. There's no dairy, no eggs, no butter, no cheese. Which dairy is butter and cheese and milk, no milk. He already didn't drink cow milk anyway, but he did almond milk. But for his reasoning, the ethical animal treatment, if you're eating eggs and drinking milk or eating cheese and sour cream and dairy products, butter, whatever, you're still supporting the factory farming industry because, you know, the dairy cows, once they're done producing milk, they slaughter them anyway. And we all know that the chickens die, so once they stop laying those eggs, right to the slaughterhouse for the chickens. So, you know.
What are those movies that people can watch? The Food Inc. is one, but
Food
what
Inc.
was
is
the
that
other
famous
one?
one, which was a really good documentary they did. One which is really good, it's on Netflix. Did you watch it?
No.
You might be able to pull it out. It's called, Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. It's about this guy, and I want to say he's like Australian, but for some reason he lives here. And he was a big dude, like 300 pounds plus, felt like shit, was like 40. He went on this juicing kick where he did like a juice fast for like a month straight where he did only juice, morning, noon, and night. All juice, and like very healthy juice, not just like a cranberry juice, but he would juice. And he had this whole setup in the back of his car and everything. He would juice in the car on the road because he was traveling. And very interesting documentary, really good. He lost 100 plus pounds. It was amazing. I mean, he did more than just a month, but I'm saying he incorporated this, and I think gave up meat and lost all his weight. And then another, which I think you'll enjoy, this other one, I think maybe even better, called Vegucated. Like instead of educated, vegucated, V-E-G-U-cated. About this college girl, young woman who did this project where she asked 3 people if they would be willing to go vegan for 6 weeks with her and on this journey to teach them about veganism and how easy it would be to do it and if they could do it and learn about factory farming and animals, activism or whatever, and health, just in general health. So 3 people agreed to do it. It was a young, like 20-year-old girl, like early college, a young guy in his 20s, late 20s, and then a mom who was in her 40s, like a single mom with 2 kids who were like 10 and 8, and the mom was a psychotherapist in New York. So they all 3 agreed to go on this program with her, and then they would go on these field trips to different places with her, and she would take them shopping, and then they would have these interviews with them to see how they were doing. Fascinating, really good, interesting, and they struggled with it, especially the young college girl, because her family was Latin. Her mom was mom and dad were both Latin from different countries. So it was meat all the time.
Well, what's the name of that show?
Vegucated.
How do you spell that?
It's Vegucated, and it's on the Netflix, so you should be able to see it. It's probably under Wayne's favorites if you see Netflix. If you're hooked to our account, I'm not sure, but you'll find it on there. And then the other one is Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. That guy, and he's funny. That guy's funny.
That's on there also?
Fat, Sick, and Nearly Dead. And he was really ill. And then he helps another guy who happens to be a truck driver do the same thing. And that guy lost just a whole bunch of weight. This truck driver started doing the juicing thing too on the road. It was amazing. So, but anyway, I'm not trying to tout like, oh, you have to be a vegetarian to, lose weight or be fit and healthy, because you can. What I've noticed about myself is you can be piss poor on your nutrition and be a vegetarian. Absolutely. Because you can eat nothing but cheese, you can eat nothing but cake and be a vegetarian, and you'll be fat as a house. I mean, you are still like someone like you who had gastric bypass surgery, and you're nutrient deficient, and you have to really watch your nutrition. I think that happens with vegetarians as well. And it's so weird to think, well, you're just eliminating meat, which is true. But how many times you go to a restaurant and there's like 50 million things with a meat product in it you can eat. But there's maybe 4 items that are vegetarian on a menu. So a lot of times people, convenience-wise, you're like, well, let me just eat this veggie burger, or let me just eat this pasta, it just has some red sauce on it,
Carbs
which
and
is
more
not,
carbs and carbs.
yeah, and that's what I noticed for myself. The
Let
carb
me eat
issue.
French fries. Let me eat a baked potato.
Right.
Let me eat a bowl of spaghetti.
So then, if you're diabetic and you got the carb issue going on, we could talk for hours and hours on end about medical stuff and blood work, and I'm sure people are just riveted, but if anyone's listening to this ever. But,
So, thus, the reason that came up is because we were dog tired and your
yes,
feet were killing
sorry,
you.
We were
You were
both feeling you're feeling your injury.
because
and
I
was
had
feeling
back
my
surgery
joints were
in
hurting.
May 16th. I had kyphoplasty,
Right.
spinal surgery on my broken back.
So you're really still recovering
Right.
and need to have more rest time. And I think that's one thing, like, don't you think, I know I'm only 45 and you're in your 60s, but don't you notice that, like, when you realize that you're not as young as you used to be, like when I realized that I can't stay up all night and then be fresh the next morning and still push through my day like you used to when you're in your 20s.
Oh, sure.
You can go all night, get 2 hours of sleep,
Absolutely.
slam a cup
Go
of
to
coffee,
work.
and you're good to go for the day,
Right.
and you keep on doing it. And you can do this for years, literally, people. You can do this for years. And eventually,
You hit
one
the
day
brick
you're
wall.
driving and you fall asleep in your car. I mean, that is literally how I used to drive a school bus. And one day I drove through a stop sign in my bus. No kids were on the bus, thank God. But I was almost dozed off in my bus because I used to sleep about 5 hours a night, if that, and be up at 5 in the morning driving children to school. And it was that day that I was like, I have to get in bed by X time. I have to get 6 hours. That was my limit. I need 6 hours. That is what I have to have. And that never happened again. But I was literally, I freaked myself
Exhausted.
out. Yeah, I was so you're in that zombie state where you're just autopiloting and driving.
Well, the time I found myself that I realized how exhausted I was is I was sitting at a stoplight, not a stoplight, a stop sign. And I was just sitting there, just sitting and sitting and sitting and sitting. And I finally realized, oh my God, I'm waiting for the stop sign to turn green.
Right.
And I was like, oh God,
Wake up.
I'm really tired. And I guess what we're saying is we were really tired today. My back was on fire.
It
just
was
at
too
the
much,
smell.
because we were pushing too many things in one time.
Well, we had gone to Avenue. We were there probably 2 hours. Then we went to World Market. We were probably there an hour. Then
I don't know if we were at World Market quite that long, but we were
I
at Whole
think
Foods.
so. And then we went to Whole Foods, and we were probably there 2 hours.
No, I don't think we were there that long.
No?
We left here, it was 1:30, and we got back here about 5:30, going on 6 o'clock. That's 4 hours.
4.5 hours. But I had been up from the time I was up today till climbing back in this bed.
It's for me, it's the standing and walking.
6 hours.
I get fatigue from that, from just the joint pain, and I think because I'm wearing flip flops too, which they tell you not to do because it's bad for your feet.
Right.
But my feet hurt. When I wear shoes that are pinching or tight, I don't like.
You just don't want to go get therapeutic, orthotic type of
no.
shoes.
They're
You're like,
hideous.
I'd rather suffer.
Well, I mean, they pinch the toes, or I have wide feet, so it's hard to find a shoe that fits comfortably. Inevitably, all my shoes except for one pair will pinch at some point on my foot.
See, if you go down to Bersetti's shoes,
Yeah, I heard.
they have A, B, C, D, E
Yeah.
width.
How much are you gonna pay for those though? A lot.
You're
right?
gonna pay, but makes a difference in how your feet feel.
That's true.
And they're well-made shoes, and they last.
Yeah.